Don't know why. I don't know why. That's just what seems to work for me.
We don't feel like it. We don't feel like it. 'Cause we don't feel like throwing it all away.
Yo, wait, before we dive in, I'm gonna give you a second to make sure, are you following me on Instagram, Thyme Bakery LLC? Make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you're abreast of every update that I have, every video that I post. And one day I'll be posting in the community in here. So when I post in the communities, you guys will get those notifications. Please go ahead and like this video, support a girl. Let me know if you have any questions below. Now, with regards to your questions, if you're asking me questions that fall outside of how I use this wax, that is why I'm just quick disclaimer. I'm not a C6 guru. I can really only speak to it as to how it works for me, okay? All right, let's dive into the video. And you guys, as always, thank you for watching. Bye. Why do I love C6 wax? I think it's easy to work with. Wax is simple enough, you guys. It is a soy coconut wax, and for the simple fact that it's listed as soy coconut, I do believe that there is more soy in this wax than coconut. Aside from the name, I also believe that its characteristics are really that much more of a soy-based wax. However, it's soy with an improved fragrance throw. So I'm not a fan of 100% soy wax, you guys, with the exception of using it for wax tarts. But I'm not a fan of 100% soy wax for candles. I've struggled with consistent cold throws or even consistent hot throws. I've made candles with just beautiful cold throw when you burn them, zero hot throw. And so I've just, I've experimented with it, over 20 pounds of wax, and I'm like, okay, so this, something, me and 100% soy wax, we're just not jiving. So I went on to go ahead and try this C6 wax. Now, Nature Wax or Cargill, they do have a handling sheet that you guys can find online on their website. And I also know, like, the suppliers, Candle Science or even Lone Star, they'll also have this where you can just click on it on the website so you can read. And they tell you, they give you guidelines on how to use it, right? So they'll tell you about if your ambient room temperature falls in a certain range, this is the temperature that they recommend you pour your waxes at. So I think, this is a really great way or great sheet to reference as you familiarize yourself with the wax. It tells you, do not heat the wax above 200. It says it should be heated between 160 and 200 degrees when you're working with the wax. It tells you how to prepare the wax for pouring. Tells you all of these things right here. So it's a really great reference to start, or point of reference to start. And if you happen to have this wax and you haven't referenced the handling sheet, go ahead and give that a try and then start tweaking it from there. Other things that I love about the wax, I do think it's an easy enough wax to use. I do think that it is more soy than coconut wax because it behaves like soy. And for someone like me who doesn't like 100% soy waxes, this is a really great alternative. I believe that the coconut wax that they've added to it does absolutely enhance the fragrance throw. And I've had more consistent candle production now since using this wax than when I started off using 100% soy candles. In fact, I never sold 100% soy candles because I was never confident that my candles would perform the way that I wanted it to. I like that it is a paraffin-free wax. I don't have a problem with paraffin. In fact, I have a line of candles that has a little bit of food grade. The wax has a little bit of food grade paraffin in it, and it has just this out of this world fragrance throw. But there is a market of people out there who prefer not to use paraffin, and I want to be able to also offer them the opportunity to enjoy the products that Thyme Bakery sells. So I have a non-paraffin line, and C6 does not have paraffin in it. That is why I don't add Vybar. I know people like to add Vybar to their C6 to enhance the fragrance, but then that's paraffin, It is also a vegan-friendly option. What I do try to do, though, is have as many vegan-friendly options as possible to appease that clientele. Now, I do have my target market, you guys, but I do try to have as many vegan-friendly options as possible. And of course, nothing we use is tested on animals, okay? Holler. Other things that I like about the wax: excellent hot throw, excellent cold throw. After about 48 hours of cure time, if you just want to test your wick, I think that you're going to get decent hot throw with the wax. If you let the wax cure for but let's give it 4 weeks. If you let it cure for 3 to 4 weeks, the hot throw is out of this world amazing. The manufacturer recommends that you use up to 6 ounces, the manufacturer recommends that you use up to 6% of fragrance oil in the wax. I push it, I use 8%. And thus far, I've been okay. However, there's a reason why they say that, and I'm sure I'm going to come across a color fragrance or a fragrance oil and dye color combo that at 8% fragrance, something funky will happen with the candle. So, but 8% is my max. But I will say I use 8% along with stearic acid as an additive. So that the stearic acid gives me the opportunity to use higher or more than 6%. I probably wouldn't go beyond 10% with stearic acid. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. Now, a con I know that people really don't like is that it does not have a smooth top. It's very difficult on the first pour to have that wonderfully smooth, even top. I will show you a top that I have after one pour. It's not smooth, and there are times too when I even might have a dip near the wick, and I believe that it has everything in my experience so far to do with how fast it's cooling down. So a tip that I've seen many people recommend online is turn your oven on to 170, and when it hits 170, turn it off. When you're done making your candles, put them in the oven and let them cure and cool down while the oven goes from whatever temperature it is when you're done and just cools. You guys know I said that's so funky, but you get where I'm going. It's not at 170 when you put it in there, but you let it all cool down together so that the outside of the container stays warm. Or some people put their containers like with towels wrapped around them and then cover it with a box so that it cools down very slowly. So just look up different methods in helping cool it down slower, because I think that is really what affects the tops not being as smooth. And then sometimes if it looks like Vaseline or a little bit on the top, I think then you have added too much fragrance oil to it. Let's talk about, we're still talking about the smooth top. So I've actually incorporated that soy characteristic into my candle line by setting expectations through the name. Every dessert inspired candle that I make in this line is called crumble top candles. Everything that I make for Bath Time Bakery, as you already know in the name, you guys, is dessert inspired, all things sweet, indulge in calorie free desserts. And so crumble top pies, they've got crumble top pies, they've got crumble crust pies. And so I've incorporated crumble top into the name, and I discuss this with my customers, and they have a cute little insert that talks about the characteristic of the wax so they know to expect. After first burn or second burn or sometime along, you're going to get this interesting, crazy, funky top. And I call it fun, and I call it a lot of character. And so that is what I do. And a lot of customers who are familiar with soy wax and gravitate towards soy wax are not usually strangers to the kind of odd tops that you can get with a soy wax candle. If you want to get a smoother top, you can consider adding additives. For example, stearic acid, I noticed, does make my tops a little bit smoother, but I don't add enough to make it 100% smooth. But stearic acid I've noticed helps. Now, I haven't tried this personally. I know some people use beeswax. Not only does it make the wax more firm, which then you'll have to consider changing your wick, but it also helps with that smoother top. So you just have to play around with it, or maybe get, I don't know, what is it called? Cocoa 83 wax. Get another coconut based wax and mix it with it, or C1, 100% coconut wax, and mix it in and just see how the ratio affects the characteristics of your wax. But there's definitely opportunity to have a smooth top, but I'm not aggressively pursuing that because I have found a way to incorporate it into my candle line. Bubbles. This is a particularly bubbly wax. You'll notice that when you are melting it, you'll just see bubbles. Bubbles coming from the wax, just a whole bunch of bubbles, which I don't see this with any other wax that I've used. And so what I found is if you let the wax just heat up, right? And once it hits 200 or whatever temperature between the range that the handling sheet recommends, once it hits that range, if it's melted, you add your fragrance oil, mix 15-20 seconds, then you pour it. I find that you are more likely to have the bubbles show up when you're burning your candle. So what I like to do is once that it's fully melted, I will keep it so that it goes no warmer than 189 degrees and let it sit hot at 189 or a little lower for a good 20 minutes. And I don't know why, but I feel like that really does reduce the bubbles that you see in the candle. So if any of you guys have the bubbles, let it sit once it's melted for a little bit. Do not let it exceed 200 degrees. That's why I keep it at a cool 189. Lastly, wicking C6 wax. I have found that when you're wicking C6 wax with cotton wicks, just my opinion, with cotton wicks, you're going to go a little larger than you would even with a soy, a 100% soy candle. Don't know why. I don't know why. That's just what seems to work for me. So if I'm using a vessel with 464 soy wax, and with that vessel, I've found that CD18 works for me, I will not try any lower than CD20 if I'm going to use that same vessel and I know I'm going to be using C6 wax. That is my experience. You guys let me know what your thoughts are with regards to wicking it. But I feel like I have to go big or go home when it comes to wicking. And then, you know, of course you have to observe the wick and the performance of the wax. But I found consistently that I'm using larger wicks than I'm used to than when I was using like 100% soy waxes. Wooden waxes or wooden wicks. When I'm using wooden wicks and if I'm looking at their website and I'm looking at, you know, their recommendations, I will use the recommendation of a 100% soy wax and nothing else, even though this has coconut. And I find that that works perfectly. Now, between cotton wicks and between wooden wicks, I prefer wooden wicks. Wooden wicks offer the best hot throw, point blank, period, you guys, just the best. So the reason why though, and cotton wicks are good too, you guys, absolutely. But I do like wooden wicks better. As far as hot throw, if you have a fragrance oil that's a little softer in fragrance and throw, I think a wooden wick would give you the little edge to help it reach a little farther. The reason why I like to use cotton wicks in this line is it fits, it jives. It just works, it looks beautiful. And again, you're still gonna get that hot throw. Let it cure, you guys, 3 to 4 weeks. You're gonna get, I love everything I make. Anyway, you're gonna get that hot throw. Now let me look at my list because I did write stuff down just to make sure I don't forget anything. And that's all I really wrote. Yep, bubbles, wicks, cure time 3 to 4 weeks, but 4 weeks is the preference, y'all. If you want smoother tops, consider additives. Yes, for sure, soy coconut with emphasis on soy. And vegan friendly, great hot throw, great cold throw. It's a wonderful wax to work with. It's slightly delicate. And it's one of those waxes where if you touch it, you will have wax on your finger. And I didn't notice that until somebody had actually mentioned it, because I don't touch my candles. But somebody said that, but people will touch candles, right? So when I touched it and I could see my fingerprint, I'm like, oh, so it's a soft wax. So if you want to beef it up a little bit, definitely consider, you know, adding something to it, some additives, figure out what works for you, what you're interested in, what fits with your line and the ingredients and all that stuff. And you can do additives. So with that being said, because it is a soft wax and I have my candles, let me see if I can get it to focus. Because it is a soft wax and this is going over the top, I'm not gonna actually be shipping this batch. These batch of candles, what I'm going to do is sell them in person at the artisan fairs. But I think in shipping, even though they're packaged and in their box, you know, the top won't arrive all pretty. So for the most part, I try to keep my candles so that they barely go over the top, so when packaged and shipped, they don't get bumped and bruised and beat up. And so here's something more like what I would ship. I would absolutely ship this one. And I'll just take a picture because the coloring is quite funky right now, but where it doesn't go over too much. So anyway, you guys, those are my thoughts about C6 wax. I think it's a wonderful wax. It's a lot of fun to work with. I think it's quite forgiving. I want to say I dang near think it's luxurious. It's a very nice wax. Some might even say, oh, it's a stretch, but why? Why is it a stretch? Why is it not considered luxurious, right? It's a luxurious wax. I love it. Light, flaky, very cool, funky, flaky texture. And so now what I'm going to do, you guys, is conclude this video. I will have some pictures of candles that I've made with C6 wax, just so you guys can see what that looks like. And yeah, let's move on into the tutorial where I show y'all how I make these beautiful candles. Holler.